I'm going to read off a similar statement that I've read before in case there's some new joiners to our council meeting. So welcome to our May 5th, 2020 City Council meeting. This meeting is being held remotely. I'd like to go over a few of the logistics so that we can have a productive meeting. Consistent with Governor Ramsey's orders 20-028 dated March 24th, 2020, and the continuation of the Stay Home, Stay Healthy directive, all public meetings continue to be held remotely. We are following the directions of that order. On this agenda are routine and necessary actions for our council to consider, and we also will provide two opportunities for the public to provide comments. Joining me in the City Council chambers are myself, Mayor Bruckner, City Administrator Katie Allen, City Clerk Ann Swenson, Police Chief Brian Asmus, Operations and Maintenance Director Jennifer Camp, Finance Director RJ Stevenson, Lisa Keys, Director of Planning, Engineering and Building, Jocelyn Riddle from the Library, IT Support Todd Henderson, Media Support Anita Tyler. Todd will be managing the Zoom meeting, and Anita will be managing the Facebook Live recording. I would like to take a roll call of all City Council and remind you all that we will be doing a roll call voting for the remainder of the meeting. At this time, I will call your name. Please let me know if you are participating. Mayor Pro Tem Mike Kennedy. You're muted, Mike.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Foyer.
Here.
Councilmember Severs.
Present.
Councilmember Dunn. Councilmember Kurtz. Councilmember Langford. Councilmember Kamiskas.
Yeah.
Also attending, hopefully remotely, is our City Attorney Sean Bouts. Oh, I do see him on, actually. So he's in attendance as well. As I mentioned earlier, there will be two opportunities for public comment. When that time comes, I will acknowledge public participation for up to 3 minutes. For the record, please let me know your name if you're a City of Liberty Lake resident or not. To participate on Zoom, the public can so indicate by choosing the chat feature on Zoom. Finally, anyone who is not speaking will be muted until it's time for you to speak. As a reminder to the council, we will also be having an executive session with a separate call-in line after this meeting adjourns. So we will start with the invocation.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Severs. Is it me? I did not hear Councilmember Dunn or Councilmember Langford.
No,
Are they present or do we need to excuse it?
Councilmember Langford is on. Councilmember Dunn does not appear to be at this time. So once we do the roll call at section 4, we will move to excuse Councilmember Dunn.
Okay, great.
Okay. God our Father, I thank you for all the blessings you provide us each and every day. I thank you for your guidance during this very difficult time as you watch over our community. I ask that you guide our City Council and staff to make the best decisions possible and continue to watch over those that are working to help our community, their neighbors, and our county. In Jesus' name, amen. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. We've done the roll call. I still haven't seen Councilmember Dunn join us as of yet. So if we can get a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Dunn.
All in favor?
Second.
That was Hugh, the second that. All in favor?
Question, do we know why that?
We have not heard for any reason why he is not on that call.
Officially or not officially?
I will leave that up to you guys. Yes, it does. So we have a motion to excuse Councilmember Dunn.
The sound that we're getting from the phone is very, they can't hear it back right now, so.
We can't hear it for her.
Cannot hear, and her speakers had a hard time hearing what council's saying on the phone, so can we turn it up?
Stand by for 1 second. We're working on the speakerphone to get the volume turned up so everybody in the room can hear us. All right, I think we're good now.
Can someone talk?
Councilmember Kennedy, do you want to give that motion again to make sure we hear it?
Yes, I would make a motion we excuse Councilman Dunn, and due to the extenuating circumstances of possibly not being able to get on this call at this point.
Second?
I'll second.
Was Councilmember Severs seconding? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
That was Councilmember Kamiskas opposed. Can you?
And quick heads up, I just got a text message from Councilmember Dunn. He was patching up an emergency and he'll be right on, so he'll be here shortly.
Perfect.
Is it too late to change my vote?
Yeah, well, as soon as he joins us, we don't have to worry about the vote.
Gotcha.
Okay, can you also, Todd, do you have Bowden unmuted? Oh, there he is. Okay. Just couldn't hear him before.
Are we still, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we still need to dispose of the, motion on the floor?
Yes.
So do we have an amendment to the motion by anybody?
Because I made the motion, I would amend the motion, disregard it.
Second?
Second?
That was Councilmember Kennedy that made the motion. Councilmember Langford seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? And I can see Councilmember Dunn joining us now. So we'll give him a quick second to get on.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask for all the council members to turn on their camera, please.
Yeah, if they have the ability to do that, that is great. Helps me know who's saying aye or nay or. Okay, I believe Councilmember Dunn is getting started. Do we want to give a motion for the agenda for approval?
I would make a motion to approve the agenda with an addition of the executive session, which wasn't in our agenda. Add the executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Opposed? We need to get Bowden unmuted as well as Councilmember Dunn. There we go.
All right. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunn, for joining us. Okay, so we will start out with our first opportunity for citizen comments at this time. Are there any citizen comments? Not hearing any, we will move on to the Mayor and City Council reports. Any council members that have any reports for us?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we had a AWC meeting today for the nominating committee. We met, it was a really productive meeting. We're moving forward with plans for holding the virtual business meeting and for having those members who are running for board of directors will have the opportunity to a telephone conversation with the committee during their interview process, and they're finalizing the method of voting for all members at the general meeting, which will also take place virtually. And that's it for right now, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Langford. Are there any other city council reports? Okay, not hearing any. I will go to my reports. I'll start out with the conversation myself, along with Spokane City Mayor, Spokane Valley Mayor, as well as the Pullman Mayor. We spoke with Governor Inslee today. We talked to him about our numbers here in Spokane County and how we've seen our numbers start to flatline a little bit. We discussed some of the challenges that we're all noticing within our communities and with our businesses, and some of the percentages that we're seeing in drops, anywhere from 70 to 90%, depending on the businesses. He said that he was interested in looking at regional openings, and he had picked a number of counties. Any county that was under 75,000 in population, he's letting move a little faster pace on the phases. I also expressed to him that we are, from us not being able to open up our businesses in a quicker format and getting them back up to speed, we are essentially having a lot of our population heading over to Idaho, which is a rock stone throw away, and they're able to take their business there, which impacts all of us substantially. And the huge request that we all had that you look at Spokane County. We have some other things that we're going to be discussing with the mayors for other ideas to help direct him to look at our county further. And we're going to be discussing that tomorrow and over the next week. So that's where we're at with that. Any questions on that? Councilmember Severs.
Just a quick question. It seems that the Spokane County's coronavirus numbers are substantially lower than the west side of the state. Was there talk, or is there a thought from the governor that there's just a huge risk that the numbers all of a sudden are spiking because of transportation from the west side to the east side, or is that a major concern right now theirs, or not? I'm just wondering if that's what's holding them back from letting us move a little bit quicker to the west side.
No, I think that he was just concerned more about the size of our county and the potential for it to spread within our county. That's why he chose a lot of the smaller counties to start. But with that being said, we expressed to him some of the numbers that we thought we had within our county, and he said he wanted to see those numbers. I talked about our city specifically, and in relation to Idaho, and the mayor from Pullman shared my sentiments that he's losing a lot of business. In fact, he has had 3 businesses shut their doors permanently in Pullman. And we expressed to him the concerns that if we don't start to give guidance and opportunities for our businesses to open up, they're going to have a lot of challenges being able to continue. So I have some further ideas that I'm going to be pursuing this week with the governor, and we'll talk to you more about that as we proceed. It's going to be trying to position our city in a way that he understands our population and the small impact that we've had in relation to the number of people affected. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Not hearing any. We also have been discussing farmers market, and I believe we have a June 6th start date. There will be some limitations on the farmers market piece in relation to controls, I should say, and maintaining social distancing. So to start, it won't be your typical farmers market that we're used to. And as we open up farmers market, we will have a city booth there. But there will be a request that we kind of coordinate efforts amongst the council members that want to be there that day. Because ideally, we're only going to want to have one elected official and one staff member to be there, so we have that separation and we're not having too many people at the booth. So we'll coordinate that as we get closer. And the farmers market group is still working on and finalizing their protocol and process to help maintain the protocol that the governor has put into place. Any questions on that? Okay, not hearing any. We also got launched Liberty Lake Together, as you guys probably have seen at this point. We've had a lot of positive response, a lot of great feedback from the community. And so I just ask that you continue to be involved in those efforts. And a lot of the businesses that I've spoken with said that they'll be putting the Liberty Lake Together sign in their business that are still open and have somebody present. And so yeah, I really appreciate everybody's support on that. And I think it's helped lift up our community as we continue during this process. Okay, we are moving on to the city administrator report. Katie.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things I sent out to the council. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it before tonight's Zoom meeting, but I'll touch on a few things. One is the Harvard and Henry Road update. Just wanted to keep you all in the loop that Henry Road design is progressing fairly well. We just received approval of what's called the TSL, which stands for type, size, and location of the effort. So this is a joint agreement between WashDOT and the county and the city of Liberty Lake on what the bridge structure is going to look like and some of the technical connections. When we get it further along to about the 30% range, we bring it back to council so we can show you the profile. It is also the least cost option, so all the jurisdictions at a staff level were supportive of this structure. So that project is moving along well. As you might recall, we hope to wrap up all of the design by the end of the year. On Harvard Road, the state will be opening bids for the widening and the extension of the westbound on-ramp in mid-July. So hopefully, before fall ends, we'll have a contractor selected, and they will begin mobilizing in the construction of that project, which is all good. But I also wanted to mention Barker Road Roundabout. So this is technically in Spokane Valley. It's on the north side and the south side of I-90 at the intersections of Barker with the off and on ramps. And that project is being let now, and the bid should be awarded probably in mid to late June, and then construction will start. And the reason why I'm mentioning it to all of our council members, we do expect to have quite an impact on traffic when the detour is going to place for the construction of the Barker Road Roundabout. So Lisa and Scott paid a lot of attention to the details. We provided that feedback to WashDOT, and they're going to work with us on accommodating some of the detour routes. If there's not any questions on these projects, I'll just keep moving.
Councilmember Kamiskas has a question.
Okay.
Hi, just a quick question, Katie. Do we know approximately what the timeline is going to be for the Harvard Bridge expansion? Are we going to span over 2 seasons? I can't foresee it being done in 2020. What are we looking at timeline?
So the best, you're right, it's not going to get done this year for a variety of reasons. Likely they will begin staging some of the piers, get the piers in this fall, and then complete it by spring or early summer next year. That's the time frame. As soon as the contract gets let, though, I will bring a construction schedule to council so they know kind of what's in the contract. But that's my best estimate is late spring, early summer when the project wraps up.
Any other questions? Not hearing any.
Okay, so the next update, I wanted to provide a little bit about the coronavirus 19 update. It's a joint update from Chief Asmus and also RJ Stevenson. So I want to start with the CARE Act funding and also the relief, coronavirus relief fund. There are dollars that are being allocated to compensate local jurisdictions for some of the services that we have provided or we will provide directly related to COVID. So without going into a lot of detail, there is some mixed messages that we're receiving, and so I wanted the council to know that RJ is studying all of the requirements, and we're getting questions answered by AWC and MRSC on what is the appropriate use of these funds. So though it's a good thing that these funds are starting to materialize, we haven't received them yet, it is provides us an opportunity for some backfilling of, or excuse me, covering some of our expenses. There's still a lot of ambiguity as far as what we know. And I am going to mention, and RJ, correct me if I'm wrong, the city of Liberty Lake, based on our population, the allocation is $330,000, but we're only eligible to use those funds for eligible costs. So we have to make sure that we follow the protocol and the restrictions on those funds. The other thing I want to mention, I sent a copy of the phased opening plan that Governor Inslee put out. I think it was last Friday.
Councilmember Severs, you have a
Yes.
question?
With those funds, under the emergency action that the mayor took gave the mayor a few weeks ago, are those the mayor's to allocate, or is that the council to allocate? We understand the proper use of those funds.
So the way procurement wouldn't change with how the city does business. I mean, there's an emergency that the mayor felt they needed to act on. He could act on spending some of those costs, but if there's anything over $5,000, they would come back to council. What we're looking at, where those funds can be used for, are some of the actions that we already took, like closing the playgrounds, putting up the barriers, the cleaning supplies, and then looking forward to using those money again for COVID-related issues, trying to get our facilities up and running. There are some economic business supporting features of this, but we're still waiting for more detail on how broad that description is.
So RJ, I have a question, and perhaps Councilmember Severs, this answers specifically what you're asking. So when the funds come in, they would be recognized in our budget, is that correct? Would we do a budget amendment to recognize those funds, RJ?
Yes, we would want to recognize the expenditure, the appropriations for those funds before we started to spend them, correct?
And then to the degree that we start spending those funds, to be honest, we're going to have to put together a pretty detailed report on how those funds are going to be allocated, because we have to make double sure that they're used. And certainly that is a report that we'll bring to council. We'd be looking for your support.
Yes, and there will be a lot more detail coming when the money does show up. We haven't actually received the money yet. We're looking at how that is being tagged, because I know it's part of the Relief Act on there. These funds, if not spent by, I believe, the end of the year, or state would have to return. So we'll have a pretty detailed plan once we're ready to roll this out. We know we've been tracking right now. We're tracking anything that we believe is COVID related. Already it has a different bars line item in our expenditures. There's not a budget attached to it. We want to make sure we track those separately so we could have a detailed list and backup when we're justifying our costs. Because that was even before we knew this $330,000 existed.
Thank you.
And then on the phased opening, Ann has it up on the screen right now. So right now, as everyone knows, we're in phase 1. It started today, Cinco de Mayo. And every 3 weeks, all of this can obviously change, be extended or accelerated in either direction. But if you were going to ask ourselves when we would have the next council meeting, you're probably looking at July 7th. Or that would probably be when we can hold another council meeting live in our council chambers, unless things change. There's a lot of detail in there that we're tracking, and I consistently want to reiterate that we are in coordination with the city of Spokane, the county, and the smaller jurisdictions, so that opening and closing of city facilities and activities is consistent throughout the county. We're not sending a mixed message to our residents. So on that note, I'm gonna ask.
Real quick,
Okay.
I also do want to let the council members know, there are also dollars being allocated to Spokane County, in which, the county commissioners and the mayors are looking at and discussing how those dollars can be allocated, throughout Spokane County. There's a lot of expense associated on a county level to the response to COVID, as you can imagine. So we are having the discussions on covering those expenses and then potentially what's left over, where those dollars will go. Those are still in discussion. We're potentially going to have a deeper conversation at our meeting tomorrow morning with all the elected officials.
Question?
Yes, Councilmember Kennedy.
Katie, back, I'm looking at this phases, and to me, it looks like phase 3 would be the one that we could start back into our council meetings, because it says allow gatherings of no more than 50 people. You haven't mentioned July 7th, but you're reading this, it looks like June 16th.
Okay, so I'm looking under gatherings, social and spiritual. It says, you're correct, Councilmember Kennedy, allow gatherings with no more than 50 people. And I guess if we could have, I suppose we could open up City Hall and have a council meeting if there's fewer than 50 people. We'd have to monitor that. So that would, you're correct, that would be June 16th.
And we'll keep you guys updated as it progresses. Like Katie mentioned.
Thank you.
Like Katie mentioned, this is going to continue to be very fluid. But when you look at the phases, not only for our council, but for anyone online watching this on Facebook or via Zoom hearing it, I can't express enough how hard all of the mayors and the commissioners are working to be a voice for our county. We all share the same message that we need to be looked at separately, and that we need to be able to get our businesses up and running. So I know that there's some citizens out there that have had questions as to our intent, and our intent is to get us moved up in the phase process as swiftly as possible while being as safe as possible.
And Mayor Brickner, I was going to mention along those same lines, when we shut down our facilities and we had to go through a great communication effort with our community, shutting our doors, taking care of business, so to speak, on a different basis. When we open our doors when we open City Hall and also our library, there's things that we're going to have to do that we aren't currently doing. It has to do with disinfection, cleaning, routine cleanings, product, we have to have the products to clean. And I don't want to belabor the point, but just opening City Hall back up or opening our library back up is going to take an extra amount of effort, because our practices are going to be different than we've had in the past. So those are the things that we're trying to work through. What does it mean when we open City Hall and someone comes in? What is our cleaning routine? What is our disinfecting routine? How many people can we allow in the building? So we're putting a lot of thought and energy into that, and we'll keep you informed as this progresses along. So with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Langford.
Thank you. Has any of our state representatives from this side of the state, have they been in touch with the mayors and the Mayors Association? It seems that they've been awkwardly silent so far. Have you heard anything different?
So I should say, I forgot to mention that Commissioner Cooney was on the call as well with the governor, so my apologies. From a commissioner's perspective, we've been hearing a lot of support and similar response to what the mayor's requests are, but that's about it for now.
Rochelle and...
I'm sorry, Rochelle and Andy Biggs were also vocal about it, and I believe
they participate in it.
Yeah.
So there's
Did you recount Shay, McCaslin, or Patton?
No.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
just give you a public safety perspective on COVID-19 response. So first off is our policy group continues to meet, but we have changed it to just 3 days a week now. So when this first started, we were meeting 7 days a week, then went to 5 days a week, and now we're meeting Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And that policy group is really to set the direction for the coordination center to develop strategic plans. Is that how we move forward as a region to combat COVID-19? So some of the things we're working on in the operations group include child care capacity assessment, because one of the concerns is as people go back to work, there's going to be child care needs, and working on how do we open up the child care facilities to meet those needs. Another thing we're working on is reviewing the isolation center, which is currently at the fairgrounds, to determine the scope of that, if it needs to be as big as what they've planned for. So they are looking at those things. Thirdly is they're looking at food continuity to make sure that our food banks are well supplied to provide that service to the community. And then also they're working on PPE or personal protective equipment distribution, specifically to adult family home centers. And the last thing I have to report on is that locally, right now we have 51 complaints that have come in to the police department, reference violations of the governor's order, which is good news because I think last council meeting I think I reported 48, so it's only been a few new ones. So I am very happy about that. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chief? Not hearing any? Reggie's going to give us a financial
Just
update.
a brief update. Last week I emailed you an updated 3-month summary report. We looked at our auto sales, and in discussion that the mayor had with George E., we thought that it should be actually a 70% reduction, not a 50%, what the original ones had. So we reran the numbers, kind of looking at that 3-month gap, and we still are really close. We still feel like we're in the correct projection, even at a 70% reduction. You see that little pink highlighted is just a little under 3,000, where we're still with the cuts that we made from the last go around. So we're still waiting to. June is going to be the first time we're really going to see to validate these numbers, but based on some of the assumptions we made, talking to other cities, talking with MRC and what they're forecasting, we feel like we're making the proper adjustments at this time. Going forward, kind of the next area data that I'm looking at is going to be on May 10th when we receive our property tax revenues, just to see if there is a drop, that people are taking advantage of the delay in property tax, that more creates just a cash flow. So when I get that information, I'll update council regarding that. And then late May, we'll get the March's sales tax data. And this will start showing the impact on the restaurants, the hotels, but it also might be overshadowed by the increase with people coming out. That was kind of when we were starting running into a hoarding issue at the supermarkets and cleaning supplies. So we're not expecting to see a downturn in sales tax for May because of we believe that will off balance with what happens with restaurants. And then cars and auto weren't really affected until April when it came to sales. So we really have to wait till June to see where we're going to be at on that, on the actuals on that number. Are any questions on this summary before I go to the dashboard?
Real quick before we get to questions, I do want to note if you look at phase 1, you'll see that we made some great headway with Governor Inslee, and he added automotive sales that encompasses anything automotive related to start back up, which is a very positive note. And I continue to reach out to all of our businesses possible to see how they're impacted and what percentages they're continuing to see. So any questions for RJ? Councilmember Kamiskas?
Yeah, hey RJ, and sorry for getting so close to the computer, I have to get up close to see. Number 4, reduce Boston activities by 100% from March through June. Obviously, we just got open today with the golf, so it's a little hard to tell. Any thoughts from Chris on how fast golf will kick back in, and to what degree?
We've already seen it kick in pretty good. I just drove by there on the way here and the parking lot was full, so it's a good sign.
Yeah, so we weren't sure what to expect today. I think I'm going to talk to Chris a little bit more tomorrow on how the process went. He felt he could maintain the distancing. So that's one of the things as we go through the month of May is looking to revamp these numbers again, knowing that the golf activities are in place. We'll probably fine tune that one. That one's not a huge revenue source from a sales tax for the city, but it does include admissions tax. So that one we'll have better data for you now that I know all 3 courses are operating to see how that first day went. So we were kind of wondering if there would be a huge rush of people coming out, if we could maintain the distancing, but things seem to go well today.
Any other questions from the councilor for RJ? Not hearing any?
So I'm gonna go to the dashboard.
Yep.
Before I flip on there. So we also sent out the April dashboard last week. I had to send a revised one because I had a decimal point in the wrong number when it came to the pedestrian safety. We only spent $6,200 and some odd dollars on that, not $62,000 so far this year. I do want to point out that this is showing sales tax collected in April, which is actually February sales. Through the first 4 months, we're 12% higher at this time than we were at last year. A lot of that is for the high school, but that's still, if you took the high school out of there, the construction on there, we'd be almost right at a little bit above where we were at this time last year. So sales were still in that first quarter, even going into April, were very strong. So what that is, maybe a positive note is that there's some momentum that was built up before we know we're going to see a revenue hit here in June. So the other thing pointing out, our revenues collected so far the year are higher expenses, pretty close to, if you take out the lift for the first phase of Orchard Park, we're pretty close to break even through the first 4 months. And just from the expenditure side, we have, in April, we did start instituting our reduction in costs. So we're trying to stay ahead of where our revenues, we know we're going to decrease from there. Any questions on the dashboard?
Hey, RJ?
Yeah.
That's Councilmember Kennedy.
Observation on the sales tax, looking at January and March is traditionally RV sales, they start in January when they have the big RV show. And that's a big kickoff for them during that period of time. And also the auto sales. So I would assume that we'll probably see a trend there where January, February into March probably had higher RV sales, which is encouraging.
Yes, and we were experiencing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for RJ on the dashboard? Not hearing any? Katie has one final thing on her.
All right, just in closing, we're trying not to go way out and cancel or postpone a lot of events. However, I can tell you through the month of May, all events and programs have been canceled. We also are tracking what our neighbors are doing as far as even in Idaho, City of Spokane, Sandpoint, and there are a lot of jurisdictions that are canceling all activities through August and into September. But we are just, Jen is keeping a real good track of what's going on, and as soon as there is the possibility that some events can proceed, then we would do so. The only challenge I want to remind council is we don't have the number of staff this year that we had last year. So that's a little bit of a concern that we'll have to work with. And the other thing is farmer's market was determined to be an essential service. Therefore, the closing of events and programs did not affect them, other than their operations that have to be modified. So Mayor, that concludes my report.
Any other questions for Katie?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Langford.
Thank you. This is really for RJ. RJ, you sent out a financial monitor PDF. Can you bring that up?
Yes, we can. We're efforting, just. All right, you can't see it, but we have it on our TV screens. Just one moment.
No problem.
I can't wait for you guys all to be able to come back to city council.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, we got
Thank you
it.
very much. Yes. So we're sitting at tier 3. Is that still the city position as the time of our meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have a list of things of how we are reacting to this particular situation, and it's called Tier 3 reaction. Is that still valid for this evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thanks. Just checking with you.
Good question. Any other questions for Katie or RJ?
I do have one question for Katie.
This is Councilmember Kennedy speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at this chart and under pedestrian safety. Is there any update? We will be getting probably information of the research they did throughout the city for the pedestrian safety.
Councilmember Kennedy, I don't have an update readily available right now. Lisa, do you have information?
Yeah, so,
No, I'm not asking for it now, but are we getting near that? We maybe have if it's possible, report to our next meeting?
Yes.
no, it's in design right now. The dollars, you approved a contract for $39,000 for the design of the beacons.
Yeah, so Councilor Kennedy, we'll give you an update at the next meeting on the status of where we are.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any. We will move on to the workshop. This is regarding the 2021 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Plan. Lisa?
Yes, Mayor, council members, good evening. I just wanted to reach out to you and kind of give you the highlights of the draft 6-year transportation improvement plan. As I know that you recall, RCW does require cities to prepare and adopt a transportation improvement plan every year. It's a rolling transportation improvement plan. And the reason is that any projects that are to be eligible for state or federal funding must be listed on the transportation plan. It does require a SEPA review, and you may have seen that the SEPA review has been posted, it does also require a public hearing. We right now have scheduled the public hearing and first read of the ordinance for June 2nd of this year, with the second read and council action on June 16th, so that we can complete the adoption prior to the deadline when we need to submit it to the Secretary of Transportation. Now, I know you can't read this, but I just wanted to call to your attention that the full transportation improvement plan is in your packet, and so you may want to pull this up to take a look at it as we discuss it. One of the things you'll see with the transportation improvement plan is we've reorganized it a little bit, and to make it clearer, more intuitive. We have organized it we've sorted it by project types, the project types being new construction, preservation, which is like Bryan overlay, and rebuilds of existing right-of-way, existing roadways, enhancements, which are making improvements to the existing infrastructure, maintenance, and plans and reports that are used as a basis for developing and identifying what future projects we need and how they may be constructed. It's organized by project name. So first is the category, then alphabetically by project name, then by location. We have listed the funding sources, total project cost, and then the project expenditures by years. Items that are to be completed by others are listed in green, because while they draw from some of the same funding sources as the city, we do need to include those projects. The project descriptions are included in a separate document, and we have created some line numbers on this. This is just for your ease of reference when we're discussing it. And what I will say is that generally the transportation improvement plan has been based on the adopted CFP. So when I say generally, you want to know what is different with this CFP. So there are some TIF and LIFT eligible projects in the CFP that are not included in this. Those projects that are not included in this are not included because they are not currently public property. So they're public infrastructure that is in private property that will eventually be constructed by others and dedicated to the city. The TIP also extends out to 2026, so there's an additional year from what you adopted in December as part of the capital facilities plan. We did also bring in some updated cost info. There were several projects on there where costs were to be determined. We have completed that information. And also we revised dates for some of the projects that are in out years. I think our focus tends to be on what we're going to be doing this year and what we have planned for the next year or two. And we did kind of do some budget balancing, and so based on current infrastructure's condition and needs, we've kind of made some adjustments in the scheduling of these. And we've also looked at trying to balance workload and balancing out available funding from the different sources. So I want to tell you specifically what's different from the CFP that you adopted in December. So we did add cost estimates for Country Vista rebuild, and because of the length of that project and the cost of that project, it's a two-mile segment of roadway. It is split into two sections. We also added Kramer Parkway overlay in 2024. While we will be doing some frontage improvements on the west side, and Legacy Ridge West will be doing some frontage improvements on the east side. The condition of the pavement is poor, and we do need to look at an overlay. And given its condition as compared to Sprague and some other projects, we shuffled them around a little bit to get that into the program for 2024. Sprague Avenue has been pushed out as an overlay to 2026, and let me say that with all of our overlay projects, the timing of it will depend in part on our ability to secure the TIB dollars, TIB grants. We also pushed out Mission Avenue frontage improvements to 2026, and this is at the eastern end of town. And we removed the trail from Selkirk Middle School to the hub because the school district has now partnered with the county to complete that, so it does not need to be on in our transportation improvement plan. The other thing that we did that, there's been some discussion about the preservation and maintenance. We had a line for maintenance, the 50,000 a year was for things like crack sealing, pothole, restriping, those sorts of things. The other piece of it is really, the roadway preservation, which is the, we have a number of collectors and arterials that, are of a condition that we need to plan on improving them in the next several years to do the overlays or the grinding overlays, and in case Country Vista, the rebuild. So those are the projects that you see listed in there. We did add, there's been some discussion about having a data-driven plan for our residential streets. So we have added pavement condition study and preservation master plan into the year 2024, so that moving forward, we have that data-driven basis for coming up with a plan for maintaining our local residential streets. So those are the big differences in the CFP. And so again, I wanted to bring it forward so that you could take a look at it, ask questions, etc. It will be coming back to you in the form of a hearing on June 2nd, and we pushed it out to June 2nd with the hope that perhaps we could avoid having to do a virtual public hearing. We cannot do that and meet the timeline. So it will be June 2nd, and what that does is it means that council will need to have the second read. We'll need to take some sort of action on it at the June 16th meeting. And with that, I'll pause for questions.
Question, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Kennedy.
Lisa, thank you for that. I do have one question in regards to the trail by the middle school over towards west of there.
Yes.
Are they involving us in a discussion on whatever they do there? Will that tie somehow into our trail system?
Not that I'm aware of. We don't have any trails that might connect to that. It really just runs from the middle school along the county's right of way to the hub as basically a pathway for middle school students to get to and from the hub.
Correct, but when this was first brought up, the big discussion was that part of the discussion was it would be tied into our trail system along Mission. But at this point, to your knowledge, there's no involvement with the city there.
No, I mean, it would eventually, when the improvements are done to Mission Avenue that are developer driven along the frontage to the west, to the east of the school, that we would presumably have those trails along Mission Avenue, and it would logically tie into this based upon where it's located, but at this point, that has not been part of the conversation.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions for Lisa?
Thank you all.
Not hearing any, we will move on to action items. Mayor Pro Tem Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion on consent agenda A1, approved April 21st, 2020 City Council minutes.
Second?
Second.
I got a first, second from Chris Kamiskas. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Not hearing any, that motion passes.
Motion for consent agenda 2, approved May 5th, 2020 vouchers in the amount of $231,959.09.
Second.
Councilmember Kamiskas seconded that. All in favor?
Discussion?
Go ahead.
I'd like to have, somebody explain the, expenditures that were all three alike or very close to each other for some type of equipment for the golf course and some other areas. The amount was over $3,000 each.
Are you referring, is this, related to the Hustler turf equipment
Yes,
for $13,331? So that
yes.
mower was approved back in February for purchase?
And that is 3 different lawnmowers?
No, that's just one lawnmower split up between 3 different funds. So it's shared between golf course, streets, and parks.
So, I understand that it was approved. What was the delay?
The delay?
You said it was approved in what, February?
Wait, I don't have the exact date that it was approved to purchase. I can go back and, one moment.
I guess my real question is this a necessary purchase at this time? I noticed on the dashboard that you were kind enough to pick up earlier, you had noted reduced expenditures for the golf course. And I'm just wondering at this point in time how necessary it is for us to spend the, I guess what I'm saying in total is that cash is going to be king pretty soon. And I was reminded of that by email I received from a citizen. And, you know, I can't fault that person for saying that. The correct cash will be king. And you can always come back and spend what you got left over, but you can't spend what you don't have at the time you need it. So, is that a necessary expenditure?
Once that was approved, which was before COVID started, the purchase request had happened. That was all before COVID began.
Very well may have, but it hasn't been paid for. Has it been received?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's been received.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Councilmember Foyer.
Yeah, kind of an odd question, but on item 1626, the new interior window at the police department, did the chief get mad at somebody or what happened there?
Yes.
So that was a window to be included for Saki in her office to be able to communicate with citizens that might come in and talk to her. As you recall, we had hired Aaron on to assist her. So Aaron has taken the office space where Saki was at. And so we wanted to get a window to access Saki when citizens come in.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Not hearing any yet, we will move on to general business.
We need a vote.
Oh, yeah, we do. Sorry, I got distracted. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Moving on to general business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before getting any further to general business, is it possible, I notice we still do not have Councilman member Dunn or Lang for video on. Is that possible?
It's up to them.
Sorry, I'm not technically enabled here tonight, Mike.
that's great.
Behind the curve. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
We can always make the request, but if they don't have the abilities to do so, then we have to move on.
I understand completely. Very good, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In general business, motion, general business one, approve the Marasco's energy service proposal in the amount of $249,531, and authorize the mayor to sign the contracts.
There's a second from Councilmember Promiscus. Discussion?
Hey, this is Dan. Just want to make sure that this contract we execute tonight does not include the demolition of the solar array.
That is correct.
That is correct.
Cool. Okay.
Councilmember Promiscus?
Yes, I don't know, RJ, if it's possible to pull up that, capital facilities plan and funding source that you sent out to us. You shared this with us at the last meeting. It was a good, summary breakdown of the different funds and the things that they were, things that were going to be possibly allocated to them this year. And when this project came up over the last couple of meetings, we had discussed that it was planned to be funded from the REAP fund. And so looking over the list you provided, and I think this is item A8, LLCD generators, they're under REAP fund. It only has, picture my mom right here, $147,000 of the almost $250,000 coming from REAP. And then I see from the general fund, the same A8, library/PD site improvement combined, $90,000. So it looks to me that we're planning on taking some of it from REAP, some from general fund, and those numbers still don't add up to the 250. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, correct. You are reading that correctly. Because we're looking at REAP specifically, we have the public works yard also included in REAP, and we have $700,000 allocated for that. We do not believe we're going to come anywhere close this year to spend that. If council wants to move forward with this project, you can use that capacity to spend the remaining on it to cover the Amoresco cost of 251. So reduce what we propose to reduce the amount that we would spend on the public works yard this year significantly, but that means there's appropriation available if you want to do the full project for police.
Okay, so to note, your note on here says current cash balance as of 4/21, so just a couple weeks ago was 3.29,
Yes.
and even with the public works yard in there, but only part of the generator project, we were planning on spending 1.8, so a bit more than half of the current cash balance. With regard to replenishing those REAP funds, obviously that's probably going to take a bit of a hit. I'm not quite sure how we project that with the downturn and COVID and everything, but that at face value it looks like the money's already in REAP. We can cover it
Yes.
with money we already have. It won't affect the general fund revenues or expenditures, but I'm kind of concerned about the replenishment of that fund.
Again, we're monitoring that fund as we move forward. That's based on the sales of property in the city. Up until this point, the REIT has been coming in for this year strong. I will send out a detailed report, those green and yellow reports out tomorrow, so you can see where we're at through April. We're ahead of our projections for this year. If we see any kind of downturn in the months of May and June, we will watch that closely. But right now, the REIT does have ample money for this project, and we're not moving as forward as we were planning with the public works yard this year.
So, a quick follow-up, if I may. So, Shane, I assume you probably been meeting with people like the developers, and so you might want to chime in on this too. See how things are going with them, how things are going with regards to selling existing properties. Do you have anybody's temperature on that at this point of how they think things are going or how far they're down?
With the lift of construction, I know that they're all up and moving in full force for the most part. I think the biggest challenge that they have, and this is something that is consistent across the board for all companies really, is that there's a large number of people, as we all know, that are collecting unemployment, and they don't necessarily want to come back to work because they're making more on unemployment than they are at work. So they're having a hard time getting staffing and things to that effect.
Mayor, I'd like to offer.
Thank you very much.
This is Katie. I'd like to offer that Lisa can help us put together a report for an update at our next council meeting with the amount of permit activity. I know that only tells us how many new applications are coming in, but she could probably do also a report on, COs that you're issuing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Lisa will get us that update as well at the next meeting.
Thank you.
So, is this a good time to jump in?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Foyer.
Well, Chief, thanks for answering my question on the generator, with your response on the email. I appreciate that. So one thing that kind of surprised me though is the small difference on the different sizes. So that prompted me to do a little bit of research today, actually. And I was actually quite surprised at how the different size generators affects price. It's much less than I thought it would be. So I'll just give you a couple examples here. A 22 kW you could purchase for $5,000. A 45 kW, like they quoted, you could get for $13,000, and a 100 kW generator you could get for $25,000, which I really thought was going to be a bigger spread, but that's what I could buy a generator for today on Google. So that kind of prompted me to ask the question, if the generator is that small portion of $161,000, why is it costing so much to do the generator that is large enough to run the building? So they go back to their original quote. I started breaking down their project cost, and if you break it down by actual hard cost versus soft cost, and I'll call the hard cost materials and labor to actually provide the product, generator, the vacuum units, and the lights. So that total came to $138,335 of the $248,000 quote. So I'm like, holy moly, wow. So I started backing things out and throwing percentages around. So basically, the of the 248,000, 138 is material labor. Soft cost is 111,000. And that soft cost consists of construction contingency, sales tax, construction management, site supervision, overhead, profit, some DES project management from the state, engineering, designing, and a performance bond. So, having gone through that process, the generator is not 161,000. It is when you add in 111,000 soft costs, because the generator is 65% of the 248,000 total. So my question is this our only option?
Phil, this is Katie.
Hi, Katie.
So I'm going to take a stab at kind of the calculations that you did. I did similar calculations, only I don't have them in front of me. But generally speaking, in public work, the soft costs are your design, putting together your bid documents, and do all of your pre-engineering so that you can put together a package so that contractors can bid on it. Generally speaking, in public work, that tends to be 20 to 30% of the value of the contract. So the soft costs that you're referring to are really labor costs, which are what we consider hard costs. So when I went through this and I looked at what the state was charging us, I looked at the markups and the profit for Ameresco, but also the piece of the percentage that the contractor would get, it's well within the limits of what's normal, because 20% of it was at the front end and roughly 80% of it's in the back end. So having said that, I also wanted to mention there are other options. We could do it our traditional way, and that would be to go back to the drawing board and hire somebody to do the design, put together the design documents, go out for bid, award the contract, and then do construction management. Jen and I talked to Roger Krieger, who's the Public Works Director for Deer Park, because they had just completed a job similar to this. I think it was a smaller scale project up in Deer Park. And the advantages, he said, of doing it this way, under this state umbrella, is that the jurisdiction doesn't have to hire the resources to design, bid, award, and manage the construction contract. So there's savings also just on the administration side of that effort. But certainly that is an option. We don't have to do it this way. This is our very first project using the State Department of Enterprise Services. And I believe they're on the phone right now. At least Chris is on the phone. I don't know if you want to unmute Chris, and he could jump in and add some additional information. I hope, Councilmember Foyer, I answered your question, but there are other options on how to do this. We would just have to hire the resources to put together the bid documents. And then by the board.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Katie. I guess it just, when you break it down individually like that, like you say, I'm showing just a hair over 10% for engineering, design, and performance bonding. I'm showing 26% profit and overhead, site management, just under 1% for the DES project management. And then of course you got sales tax, contingency line item. I mean, it all adds up, I understand, but what kind of sparked all this was that $161,000 for a generator set, when really that's not what it costs to do the job. $86,155.
Right, so the profit and also the labor and the procurement and the bonding and all that, we always consider that part of the hard cost.
Okay.
Chris, did you have anything to add?
Is he unmuted?
This is Chris McCarthy. I am the Department of Enterprise Services project manager that will be assigned to this if it moves forward. I think Katie did a great job explaining what the values are to the city in doing these projects with us. You would have me as your project manager from start to finish throughout the whole project. I've actually worked with Jen in the city for a few months now in developing these scopes of work. We talked about a whole bunch of different scopes of work, and these rose to the top of the immediate needs. The greatest being the generator. We did add the lighting and HVAC units just to make the project fit under the umbrella of being an energy efficiency project. You gain the oversight of project management, not having to do your own bid. You also gain the single point of contact in myself and Rocky, my camera, as well. We'll both be involved start to finish to see the whole project through.
Question?
Councilmember Langford?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I've noticed in the readings of the supplied materials, they have an outline for what their profit is, et cetera, the cost, but yet they can't tell us the real size of the unit needed because they haven't determined the need for the whole building. And they don't know which part of the building uses what part. Whether it's the police department, whether it's the library that has close consumption, etc. And I think I read that this is all being run off of 1 meter. And if that being what it may, I don't know if that's 100% accurate or not. But again, I looked at the dashboard that our city finance director just put up a little while ago, and it talked about we're not going to have, or we're going to restrict expenditures to to discretionary, not to discretionary items. We're going to hold back. And up until the time that this council comes back and says it's a mandatory expenditure, I'm going to keep harping that it's not mandatory at this time. Okay? It does fall under discretionary, and we should just stop talking about it while we're under this present COVID situation. Nothing here is going to deter both departments continuing to run. Okay? So my suggestion is, again, let's move on. Okay? Just following the advice of our own financial, manager and director is that we don't do discretionary spending at this time. And the way I see it, this whole project is discretionary. Okay? And it kind of took on its own life, all right? But at the same time, it's a hunk of money to be talking about doing both departments, and both departments don't need emergency lighting, emergency power, okay? So there's a lot of ways to get around this. I come from departments that stayed open during hurricanes and brought in generators, and we all made it through hurricanes for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And we ran off of portable generators. Okay, so our police department is no bigger, no more expensive, no more necessary, okay? And I saw that one of the requests was to make sure that the HVAC was running in the training room. So for whatever reason, that training room would need to be open during emergency. I don't know, but I'm sure there's a good excuse for it. But this just needs to be better planned, better thought out, and purchased at a time when we can afford it and we know that we've got this situation behind us. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Councilmember Langford. Any other comments?
Yes, well, go ahead.
Councilmember
Go ahead,
Kennedy,
you.
or Councilmember Severs, go ahead.
So I've been a pretty big fan of this project from the beginning, but my issues are starting to kind of pop up with going on a lot of extra costs like lighting and HVAC that I don't see as an emergency use. Generator, great, but when I hear some of the costs, I go, man, $250,000 for a lot of just pieces to this that I just don't see as really necessary emergency. I'm also concerned with the Councilman Foyer. I really appreciate the insight you brought that the generator may only be, I don't know what the exact number on is on the generator, but the generator itself may only be 13 or 20 grand. It's the actual hard cost here. And I understand procurement, I understand bonding, I understand supervision, all those pieces, but to add up some of the lighting and HVAC, frankly, I look in here and go, okay, great, we're saving $1,300 a year on energy. I, for one, don't care about that energy cost at all here. That's like a 200-year payback on a $250,000 bill. So to me, there's no way I would ever make this decision based on energy savings, so I do not care about the HVAC or the lighting, just to make this an energy savings project, in my opinion. I do think it is important that we get a generator, get a backup system going at the police station. And I also understand that our servers are there, good, bad, or indifferent, whether they should be there, shouldn't be there. They are there now. We should get some sort of backup generator system. I personally just don't care about the HVAC and the lighting for energy savings purposes. So my opinion is, now I've come a long way in the last few weeks that I would love for this project to move forward and figure out what generator we need. I don't necessarily agree that we need to power the entire building, though I'm all ears for figuring out, how long is the library going to be there, how, when might the police station or the police department take over the whole building, then would we need it? Still don't necessarily know that we need the entire building to be run in an emergency situation. Can we get the front gate run and a couple of the emergency outlets and the servers run? So do we need a generator this size? My opinion at this point is probably not. HVAC and emergency, I just don't necessarily buy that. And so I think my opinion at this point on the project is I'd like to see it reworked and come back with how do we get an emergency generator in, and that's it. And what generator do we need for this project? I agree, and if we can bring that back and say this is the size we actually need, I for one would go for it immediately. But what the project is, I think it's just kind of gotten a little bit too big for what we actually need for that building, especially in light of things going on economically in the city and the country right now. So anyway, I'll spoken my piece. Thank you for listening.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I appreciate everybody's comments on this. This is a project that I've been on board since day one. I'm big as a business owner to do preventative maintenance before it happens, if the life expectancy is there, but also use common sense as we move forward on it. My attitude hasn't changed with the idea of replacing the lighting, replacing the HVAC system, and look some generator there. My concern is timing for right now. When I look at our last meeting, and it was the dollar amount, we're going to fall short of about $700,000, and it shows where we're going to be able to cut back on that. One of the things that just jumps out huge for me, $75,000, we're going to hold back on hiring another police officer. Public safety, if that in fact is our number one concern, and we're going to cut back on that, I'm concerned about moving ahead on this project, and I'm proposing that we would postpone this for at least 60 days to see where we're going to be financially here. When I look at the report that the police department gave us at our last meeting, and specifically asked the question, is this project time sensitive that we have to do it now? And emphatically it says no. So do I think that this is good for us eventually? Yes. Do I feel it's good for us now? No. So based on that, I've made a decision. I will not vote in favor of this at this point. And if that fails, then I would propose make a promotion after that. Thank you for the time.
Councilmember Kurtz?
A couple of questions that I had dealt mostly with, how can we be creative during this? In the report, it talks about the solar panels and that they wouldn't be dismantled. And I know that it said that there was an inverter that wasn't working, but I think I heard Katie say at one point that we haven't done the maintenance on it when we got the grant and installed everything in 2010. And what I would like to understand, maybe by the next council meeting, what would it cost the city, and would the existing infrastructure, if we got it replaced and repaired, would it meet today's need for the police department? I like the idea of replacing the HVAC. I like the idea of the emergency power and the lights and everything like everybody else is saying too. But I think that the primary thing that we do need to think about is a backup for the police department. We can figure out the other stuff later, but is there something we can do with what we have today? Would there be a smaller cost associated with fixing what we have, and would it meet our need in the short term until hopefully sometime soon when money isn't as pressing need as it is today?
Okay, we'll give Katie a second to respond to some of those comments.
Councilmember Kurtz, I can't answer all of your questions, but we can find out what it would cost to do maintenance and fix the solar system, inverter, and batteries that we have. I don't believe, though, that if we got it up and running optimally, that it would be sufficient to support the police department and the backup server. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, that is correct. The solar, with the battery backup system when it was initially installed, was never meant to be the backup system for the police department. It was just something that came with that project. So at its best capacity, when the batteries were new and everything was functioning correctly, we were told that we would get about 36 hours of backup from the battery storage. And I don't remember the percentage now that those batteries were operating at that Ameresco provided. It was 80% or less because of the age of the batteries. And so regardless if we fix the solar system and then the power inverters, it's not sufficient to run that building for any period of time for backup.
Would it run part of the building, like the essentials, combined with like a generator, like other people Odin was mentioning? I mean, you probably don't have the answer to that, but is that something that we can look at so we can have a little bit more information?
Yes, we can look at that, but also with that initial 36 hours of battery backup at full capacity, that did only run very few circuits in the police department. And so it only ran the server room, my office, and our records clerk's office. It did not include the things that you see before you in the Amoresco project.
Councilmember Foyer, I believe you had a question?
I do. Hearing most everybody else on the council wanting to do the project at some time in the future, I read over the alternative strategy plan B. Just wonder if it merits any further discussion. Because as I looked that over, it's going to be 3.5 to 4 months before they'll be able to perform any service, given the upfront design for contracting, engineering, equipment ordering. Would take 3 to 4 months. So for $13,000 investment now to get the ball rolling, is that worth further discussion?
I appreciate what you're saying, Phil. You brought a lot to the table on this, so thank you. I think one of the main things that we can do to serve our public is not just to make a knee-jerk reaction to it or try to piecemeal it, right? 36 hours for an emergency backup is a pretty good amount of time to stop and think about it. And as far as, I hear what's being said about the solar system, and it just kind of makes me sit here and wonder why we ever got it to begin with, right? Was it just why did we purchase it if it wasn't going to work? Okay, where was all this input at that time? But more importantly to the point, I don't think we should spend anything right now, okay, until we know what we're spending it for. Is it buildable? Will our expenditure become a throwaway or obsolete? And what can we do to fix the problem? But let's fix it at the right time. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council?
This is Dan. I want to try and recognize the efforts of staff in coordination with Amoresco on a public works project. And further the analysis of the staff and determination that I think was well within the range of normal was what was characterized as the expenses that are included. I highly value the operation of our public safety building. I'll just draw a box around that and refer to it as the combination of how we run that place right now. And having the ability for that building to run in any circumstances and under any situation is part of the infrastructure of our city. I think investing in and ensuring the ongoing infrastructure of our city, specifically oriented to public safety, is one of our highest calls. I support the project and its assessment. So, thanks.
Any other comments from the council? Not hearing any. We do have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Dan Dunn was in favor, the rest of the council said nay. Moving on to general business number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion in general business 1, approve the Amoresco's energy saving proposal. Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope. We already did that.
Cal, let me jump ahead here. Motion general business 2, approve agreement with Spokane County Regional Animal Control Protection Services, SCRAPS.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, any questions on that?
Yes. But I need a second to get there.
Okay, Councilmember Kamiskas, I believe you have a question?
Yeah, so I was a little confused by some of the things that they included in the packet. All the exhibits with calculation examples. I'm not quite sure how that pertains to our total. I found some of the other pieces of information they provided much more helpful, but I was just curious in the future if that's something we need to really look at. It's kind of confusing. And maybe they just needed to be labeled better. It's more of a comment than anything. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Laird, Councilmember Foyer, I think you're next.
Oh, yes. To maybe help answer, I had the same question Chris did. Yeah, you're right. They just didn't put each individual city's name on the top of the calculations. At the very top of the page, they have all the different cities, and you just scroll down, and they correlate from the different cities. But my question is, they refer to the city having an animal control ordinance. We don't currently have a animal control ordinance, do we?
Yes, we do.
I did. Was that a no?
We do.
Oh, we do.
It says call scratch.
Okay, but we don't have city ordinances referring to that. Yeah, okay.
We do have a city ordinance, actually.
Okay, I'll look again. So my next question then is, on the services that we pay for their scraps, does the city or any other city ever request reimbursement from the offenders? Repeat offenders?
Not that Chief's aware of, but we can look into it.
Good question, Phil.
I mean, the onesie twosies I don't care about, but the repeat offenders seems like they should pay part of the bill. And my last question is, last year's agreement was for 3 years. I noticed this is for 1 year annually. Is it because of ever-changing costs, or is it because of is it related to the service required?
We've typically done it year to year in the past.
Well, it said previously it was a 3-year agreement.
Oh, it was 3 year, you're right, sorry.
So, Councilmember, I'm just taking a guess really at this point, but my educated guess in this is that it's going to be related to the costs associated with running the regional program, and they want to look at that on an annual basis instead of having a 3-year contract with some type of automatic inflator, so that it's a true cost of running the program shared amongst the participating agencies.
Thank you. I'll look for that ordinance. Repeat offenders, look out.
If you can't find that, Councilmember Foyer, you can shoot Chief an email and he'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Langford, I believe you are next.
I appreciate it. Go ahead, Chris, you were first, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Just a quick comment, Phil. We have my husband has a friend in the city, who has never repeat offender, so I won't claim him as a friend. But I do know that, and he's not licensed, so I do know that they do collect, fines, to release those animals. I think he's paid, $200 and some almost each time he's gone to pick up his dog. So there is some recoup of some of that.
Well, who keeps that then? Does that come back to the city?
I think it goes, I think it goes back to the operational fund.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Langford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to hear the chief on his just overall reaction to the program since we've turned it over to Scraps, and if he's pleased and he's willing to move forward with this.
I can tell you that the officers are extremely happy that they're not chasing dogs and cats around town anymore. I think the service they provide, is fair, considering the volume of calls that Liberty Lake has with their system. That's reported out to you monthly in the public safety report, so you can see exactly their activity, which was a request that was made First time we went with scraps was we wanted an accounting of the number of times they responded to calls in Memory Lake, the number of animals, that they impounded, all those things. So we get that report monthly that's provided to you, and we're happy with their service. Probably the biggest complaint that we receive at the police department is their response to barking dogs, because they have a process in place on how they respond to those that is intensive, as far as it takes, a notice, a letter, another notice, another letter. Finally, somebody will come out and talk to somebody, and then maybe on the fourth offense, and they will take some type of enforcement action. So that's probably the biggest complaint that I've heard, is that the barking dog issue is not being resolved expeditiously.
And I can add to that, Councilmember Langford. I have spoken to a number of citizens, and I do intend on speaking with Scraps a little bit further about their response in regards to barking dogs, because I know a number of citizens have expressed to me that they have tried multiple times to get them to respond, and it is, as Chief expressed, quite the process. So I want to see if they're willing to modify that response for those situations.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to get some feedback from the people who are actually dealing with it. Thank you for your time.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out that this agreement has a fee associated to it, with it $11,089.
That is correct. Thank you. Any further comments from the council?
I'm just glad the chief doesn't have to chase the dogs.
Well, honestly, it's something that I know the police department has discussed, and which is a challenge for them in relation to working with the dogs, and if they have had to place a dog in one of the police vehicles and an individual that happens to be allergic to a dog, when they arrest them, the risk associated with that as well. So it is very helpful from that perspective, and I know Chief had another comment to make on that.
Just one more comment, and that is, I apologize for the confusion in the packet, because it did include all jurisdictions' annual costs, not just the relate, so you had to kind of flush that out. So I apologize for that. But I did want to really just recognize our citizens, because if you look at the other cities and their costs, a lot of them that are similar sized cities are a lot more. And that really has to do not so much with call volume, but it has to do with, we are credited with the number of the licensing revenue. And if you look at our page, it shows that Scraps collected $20,663 in licensing fees. So we are credited that amount of money against our annual costs, which brings it down to that $11,000. And if you look at some of those other jurisdictions, it's triple that amount. And it's really about, because we're not doing as good of a job of licensing events.
Councilmember Kamiskas?
It's just a quick comment. I remember going through all of this however many years ago it was when we first signed on with Scraps, and they were taking a regional approach. And I know it went up this year from previous years, but boy, we're getting a bargain compared to the cost that we put together for us to possibly do it in-house. So
Absolutely.
I know they've got some shortcomings that I know you guys will address, but yeah, we're getting a pretty good deal.
Absolutely. Any further comments from the council? Not hearing any, we will move on to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All of those opposed? Motion passes. General business number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3, motion to accept an anonymous donation of $2,000 for the Memory Lake Together campaign expenses.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Kamiskas. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, would you repeat that? It was repeat the title again?
It was to accept anonymous donations of $2,000 for Liberty Lake Together campaign expenses.
Wow. Okay, I'm sorry, all I heard was campaign the first time. Thank
Yes. Good question.
Well, there is a delay, you know, for voices to get 3,000 miles away.
you. Very clear.
Any further questions or comments? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Introduction of upcoming agenda items.
Okay, our next council meeting is May 19th, and we have on the agenda so far an award to a construction contract for Continental Contractors for a Pavilion Park irrigation system. As you might have read in an email, that we received very favorable bids. That project is also funded by you. We also have a resolution that Lisa will put together for the Country Vista analysis, your acceptance of that report. We do have an executive session expected where we will have information for your consideration to purchase real estate property. We're not expected to take any action, but we did want to provide some information to you that we expect to have by then. We will also provide an update on the pedestrian crossing study and also the number of permits and certificate of occupancy that have been issued by Lisa's department.
Okay, at this time, we will open it up for the second round of citizen comments. Not hearing any. Before I adjourn the meeting, I want to make sure that you guys all got the invite for the executive session. Can I get a nod? Nod, we're all
I
good?
think so.
Okay, so we will adjourn this meeting. Everyone,
This is Dan, I'm gonna need an email if you got that, I did not receive the additional invitation. The LibertyLakeLaw.gov address, be ready.
Todd will send that to you.